Welcome back to Become a Calm Mama. I'm your host. I'm Darlene Childress. I'm a life and parenting coach. And this episode is part 3 of a 3-part series I'm doing about internal family systems. So if you haven't listened to part 1, which was episode 183, I suggest you go back just to get a background on what I'm talking about, because I introduced the concept of parts, like your exiled parts of you, your wounded parts of you, and your protectors, your managers, your firefighters, the parts of you that react and try to protect you from experiencing pain. And sometimes the way that those parts of us react are in maladaptive strategies that hurt us. So it's a little bit complicated. I go over the whole thing in episode 183. So I suggest you go back and listen to that. In today's episode, what I want to talk about is being what your kid needs. And I want to talk to you about this concept of self-led energy that I talked about last episode, about how to tap into your inner voice and how to lead your life from a grounded, calm place. And that way you become less reactive towards your children. You don't have to show up in such a hypervigilant state or, in that reactive yelling, fight, flight, fix it, change it, stop it, solve it, like that energy that can be so destructive for us and for our kids, how to get to that deeper level of calm. And I gave you a bunch of strategies and ways to tap into that and to know when you are tapped in and when you're not. Now, on this episode, what I really want to do is break down for you what it looks like to become the self that your child needs from you. So I'm going to go back now and just kind of slow things down. I just wanted to give you a heads up. If you hadn't listened to the last 2 episodes, you may want to go back. But I'm going to anchor us into this concept about how trauma happens to us and how to prevent that trauma happening to our children using this concept of self-led energy. Now, a lot of parents come to me and their biggest hope, right, is that they don't fuck up their kids, right? They don't want to mess up their kids and they worry that they will do something that creates trauma in their child. They don't want, obviously you don't want that. You don't want to hurt your kids. I know you don't, right? And when you are parenting from a place of reactivity, from insecurity, from stress, from fear, from overwhelm, you may end up accidentally injuring parts of your kids. And I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like and how we can avoid doing that. So when we think about not messing up our kids, what you really are saying that you want is to raise emotionally healthy kids. So what is an emotionally healthy person? When I define emotional health, I use the language of emotional literacy. I've talked a lot about it on this podcast. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about what emotional literacy is and then how we develop that in our children. So emotional literacy is the ability to know what I'm feeling, to talk about that feeling, to know what to do with that feeling, and to be able to do that for someone else. So emotional health is this 4-part process, and it really is literacy in that you build it and learn. Just like you learn how to read, the first thing you do is learn your letters, you learn your sounds, you learn how to put those sounds into words, and then slowly you add your vocabulary. And then you can put words together on your own and learn to write. If you think about that concept of reading literacy and writing literacy, it's similar to emotional literacy. The first thing I have to know is what things are called, right? I have to be able to name my emotion, to know what I'm feeling. We all have sensations, energy, and motion within our bodies. And that energy is, a feeling, right? And then we try to put words to describe it. So if I describe the word sadness, I say I feel sad. you are probably able to understand what I might be going through. If I say I'm angry, if I say I'm excited, if I say I'm disappointed, you understand what I'm talking about. But first, I have to understand what I'm feeling. And then I need to communicate it. So that first part is know what I'm feeling, know how to talk about it. So I can say, I am sad, I am hurt, I am disappointed, I am overwhelmed, right? I can describe my feelings. The third part is I know what to do with those feelings. When I am sad, I know how to take care of myself. I know how to release that sadness. When I am angry, I know what to do with my anger. When I am overwhelmed, I know what to do. Now, a lot of times we might not know what to do with our feelings. And one of the things that we can always do with our feelings is to tap into self-energy, to connect within the internal wisdom of us, the part of us that is willing to be a witness of our pain. So if you think about this internal core self, that self is willing to be a witness of your pain and to help you process your pain. We have to be able to feel our pain in order to release our pain. So the three parts, right? The first parts of emotional literacy is I know what I'm feeling. I know how to talk about it. I know what to do with it. So sometimes if I'm mad, I might need to take a big fat walk, right? Long, fast walk. Or I might need to go exercise. Like I need to move my body when I'm angry. Sometimes I need to just ignore my anger for a minute, let it dissipate by doing something else like a task. Sometimes when I'm sad, I need to distract myself. But sometimes I need to just sit in it. I need to lay in my bed and I need to cry a little bit. I need to journal. I need to talk to a friend. I need to let someone witness my sadness. When I'm overwhelmed, I might need to outsource some of my issues. I might need to make a list and prioritize. Right? I have all sorts of tools. You do too. You are a great person. You already are super equipped. No one who listens to this podcast is like, I don't know how to do any of this emotional health stuff, right? You are good. You have been, especially if you've been listening to this podcast a long time, you have so much wisdom inside of you of what to do with your feelings. Then that fourth layer of emotional literacy is the ability to do that for someone else. That is empathy. So if I'm able to recognize someone's emotion based on the way that they're acting or looking, or their face or body language, right? I can read emotional energy of others. I can help name that for them. I can help them figure out what to do with their big feelings, right? Like if a friend comes to me and starts, looks sad, I might say, hey, what's going on? And you look a little bit sad. Are you doing okay? And then they might talk and I might be able to say like, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I might offer advice or I might just listen, right? A lot of times all a feeling wants is to be felt. All a feeling wants is to be seen, to be validated. Validation is so powerful and we can just let it go once it's been felt. A lot of times in this, gentle parenting model or this emotionally connected model, parents will often get stuck with this concept of like, okay, well, I've said like, yeah, you're sad. What else am I supposed to do? Like you want to fix it, right? You want to make it better. And I want to offer to you that really what every feeling needs is to be felt, is to be validated, is to be seen. And if you can offer some soothing, that's great. Soothing can sound like, oh, that makes sense. Would you like a hug? Or I hear you. That's frustrating. And, maybe you want to go and deal with that problem. Like go talk to your friend or, we can offer some advice. We can offer some soothing, but that's not what we're there for. Compassionate parenting is not about making sure our kids don't feel badly. It's helping them learn how to deal when they do feel badly, what to do with those bad feelings. The way that trauma happens, the way that emotional pain gets stuck inside of us is when we have an emotionally difficult experience and that pain is not processed. It's kind of like, I think of it a little bit like digestion. Like I need to eat something and then I poop it out. right? But if I don't go to the bathroom, I'm going to get constipated. It's going to get stuck inside me. It's going to get toxic. Not to be too gross here, but it is helpful to think about feelings as something that just comes in and goes out. But if it doesn't go out, it will create problems. We can't, like sepsis and all those things. Like when the body's not processing all of the fluids and food and all the things that it's supposed to do, and the blood's not flowing, like things aren't flowing within our body properly, the lymphatic system, like the cardiovascular system, we have so many systems within our body that really need to keep flowing. Even perspiration, right? We sweat. Like this is all stuff that our body does naturally, and our emotions are able to do it too. But it's often difficult to be for one person to be around somebody else that's very activated, that's very emotional. A lot of times someone's emotion might trigger emotion in us. That's what the amygdala does. The amygdala reads the energy of the room. And if somebody is activated, then we get activated. That's panic, right? You think about like mob mentality, right? Or if a stampede, right? Everyone starts running. It's like we become a little bit animal-like and we just start going with whatever emotion is the most dominant. So as a parent, if your child's emotion is leading you, we talked about this in child-led parenting versus value-led parenting. If your child's emotion is leading you, you are going to get stuck a lot in reactivity and in people-pleasing and in codependency, and you're not going to be able to witness your children's pain and discomfort from a neutral / compassionate place. So I say neutral because I'm detached. I am not personally invested in my child's current state of emotion. This is why, as the leader, as a human who's been through a few hard things, right? You have too. I know that hard things pass. So when my children are struggling with something and they're going through something difficult, I have perspective. I am eternally wise, and I've got some years on me. So I can look at my 16-year-old, my 20-year-old, my 14-year-old, my 9-year-old, my 2-year-old, and know, hey, you're going to be okay. Now, we don't want to be dismissive, right? We don't want to bypass that emotion. Being in self-led energy is being willing to be a witness of that pain, be willing to dig into it a little bit, explore it a little bit, turn it around a bit, like tenderly, touch it. And I'm using my fingers to like kind of explore with my hands. Like I'm imagining an emotion inside my palms that my child is so gently holding, and I'm willing to take a look at it too, and to turn it around and see it from different sides and different angles. I'm willing to just be in it. Let that feeling be seen and felt. I don't plan to get stuck there. I'm not going to let us get stuck there. I am the leader. So when you think about self-healing that I've talked about in that whole, hierarchy of healing series that I did in February, and I talked about it last week, this concept that we can heal ourselves through a relationship with ourselves. When I talk about self-energy, I'm talking about for you to tap into that within yourself so that you can heal yourself. Now, when I talk about it as a parent with your child, I want you to bring the same energy. Let your children borrow your sense of self, your strong, calm, grounded center. Let them borrow yourself until they get better and stronger at tapping into their own. Our children, they borrow everything from us until they're independent, right? So they're dependent on us for obviously money, and we understand time. We understand how cars work. We understand a lot of things. They're borrowing practical stuff from us, but they're also borrowing our nervous system. A little baby, their nervous system is not well tuned yet. It fires up easily. It gets dysregulated easily. It can't quite soothe itself. That's why parents exist, right? We soothe our children with the goal of them learning to self-soothe. So they borrow our nervous system. We regulate them until they're able to self-regulate. So the parent, your responsibility is to model the experiences that our kids need. Not model for yourself. Yes, do that. But also be the experience with them. Come alongside of them. When your children need to learn to fall asleep, right? We stay with them until they're able to fall asleep on their own. And then we teach them that they can do it. And we teach them to be calm and confident and tap into what they need inside of them to feel safe. But the first thing we do is teach them that they are safe, that it's okay to be scared, and we know how to help them be scared. It's okay to be sad. We know how to help them be sad. When you think about trauma and you wonder, how does trauma get created, right? Like, where does it come from? It comes from these injuries as a child where hard things happen and the grown-ups around us don't help us with them. So if we experience neglect, attachment injuries, boundary violations, like if somebody touches my body in a way that's not okay, if I have a need, an emotional need, and that need is dismissed, if I'm given any feedback, like I'm getting rejected because of the way I'm acting, that's why timeouts can be so dangerous, because we are often communicating, go over there and come back when you're good, right? Instead of saying, you look like you're having some trouble, let me help you figure out what to do with this feeling or this desire or this unmet need. So we really can create emotional pain for our children by our behavior, or when they are having emotional pain, if we are not willing to teach them in real time how to deal with that pain, it can get stuck. So this burden in internal family systems, it's called a burden. But if you just think of it as emotional pain comes when children's feelings or their experience isn't validated or seen. When their child's not allowed to express the feelings that they have. They may end up having thoughts about themselves that something is wrong with them. They're so confused by this messy emotional life. I'm confused sometimes as a fully actualized adult. I can also get overwhelmed with my own feelings and senses and thoughts and feelings and all of those things. So a little kid will also have that. But if no adult is helping them narrate what's happening to them, name those big feelings, giving them ideas of how to deal with those big feelings, setting boundaries and keeping those boundaries through limits. When the adults around us aren't in their leadership energy, it can create emotional pain for the child. They may end up feeling worthless, unlovable, shameful. I don't want to go through it all because those are your fears. Now, some of you right now are thinking, holy shit, I've already done it. I've already done all these bad things to my kids. I've already created trauma. Maybe, I don't know. But your children are still children and they're still processing their feelings now, and they still need you to be a emotional witness for them, and they need you to help them when they have emotional pain. How do we know if our kids are struggling? How do we know if they need support? They give us a clue through their behavior. When I say that behavior is the clue to your children's feelings, and that feelings drive behavior, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about learning to look at your children's behavior, getting curious about it, and being like, what feeling could be under this? What emotion could be driving this behavior? Why are they acting this way? I always say parents are like, they've been acting out. Why are they acting this way? And they're like really angry. I think, okay, take your emotion out of it and get into some deeper curiosity, which is tapping into your own self energy, and ask genuinely, why? are they acting this way? What could be going on for them? Your kids, you can repair. We can talk about repair on another podcast episode, but really what they need is for you to show up today in this self energy. I'm going to talk more about what it actually means. But if you've already created some attachment disruptions and neglect and rejection and lack of attunement with your children, you don't have to do a massive, like big, huge thing. You can start now being that compassionate leader in your family, and you will. I've watched it thousands of times now in my practice with my mamas. Mom changes, kids change. Mom and dad change, kids change. They heal. In real time, it is incredible. It's so, so beautiful. And it doesn't take a ton of work. You don't have to go to therapy. You may have to if you're not able to tap into the self-led energy. You might need help getting into it. You might need help having your childhood wounds witnessed and healed so that you can tap into more and more self-led energy. So you can experience what healing feels like for you and what it feels like to be witnessed. Maybe you need a therapist or a coach who's willing to witness your pain and heal that pain so that you stop showing up in that negative energy with your kids. I do this all the time in my practice. It's so amazing to watch I primarily work with women, a mom heal herself of all sorts of different insecurities and wounds. And just in the process of mom healing, the whole family dynamic changes and the kids start to heal. It's so beautiful. So I want to encourage you to not beat yourself up. Don't use this podcast episode as evidence that you've already done too much damage. That is not true. Ironically, my mom started to heal herself around 50 years old, and I was already an adult. And in her process of healing, I was able to build a different relationship with her, heal my relationship with her because she was open to that. And through my healing with her, I healed all these childhood wounds. Not all of them. I have a lot. We know that. I have an ACE score of 9. I've healed from tons and tons of trauma. But with my mom, her process of getting to deeper levels of self-energy within her made it accessible for her to witness my pain and to be willing to take a look and support me. And I began healing. I think I was 19. And that's like the age that I started to change my life and really, grow. So when your childhood wounds happened to you, you were probably not witnessed, right? There was not an adult that was able to narrate and name what was happening for you. And so you may have become disconnected from yourself. You might be acting out or protecting yourself from getting pain. So you might be rejecting your children to protect yourself from earlier rejection. You may be overparenting because you were underparented. You might be very, very uncomfortable with your kids' feelings because you're not comfortable with yours because those feelings haven't been witnessed yet. So our kids, they need us to be willing to have self-energy around their pain so that they can heal their pain. When we are willing to have our kids' pain be witnessed and processed, it can be released. Our kids, they need us to be the adults for them, the self-energy that is willing to be a witness. Just like take a look at it. Tell me what happened. That makes sense, right? To have them feel safe enough that they can express their authentic pain and self, desires, whatever's going on inside of them. Their thoughts, their feelings, their beliefs, the circumstances, the situations in their life where they're being hurt. We want to be able to have a energy within us that's okay being around our kids when they are in pain. so that we can help them make sense to what's happened so that their pain doesn't get stuck. We need to give them words. We need to let them know it's safe to talk about these things. And we want to have that self energy. So when you're in self energy, what does it look like, right? That's what you might be asking. And it is the connection tool. So if you're new to my work, go back to the early episodes where I describe what the connection tool is. And I talk about how our job as parents, when you're trying to show up as a compassionate parent, you may not know what to do, right? So the connection tool is narrate, name, now what? Those are the 3 parts. So we're narrating the behavior we see. I see you are hitting. I see you are crying. I see you are, throwing like your stuff around, right? Whatever behavior. I see that you're not doing your homework. I see that you haven't put your socks and shoes on. I see that you are jumping out of bed. I see that you are crying and saying you don't want your teeth brushed. So we're narrating what they're saying, what we're seeing, what they're doing, and maybe some of the circumstances that are happening. Yeah, it's bedtime. You don't want to go to bed. It's such a sad time of day. It makes sense that you would not want to, get your teeth brushed or get your pajamas on and you're acting really silly. Then we name their feelings. So we narrate what's happening. We name their feeling. Like, I wonder if you're feeling sad that it's bedtime. I wonder if you're feeling confused about what you're supposed to do right now. I wonder if you're feeling overwhelmed. So narrating, naming, and then giving them some options, validating. That makes sense. It makes sense that you would feel that way, of course. This is a hard thing. And then, but, right? Or and, you can set a limit, or you can go into some options of like different perspectives. Like the cool thing is that once you go to sleep and you wake up, tomorrow we'll have lots of time to play. So you can offer them perspective. You can offer to them the future. You can offer them a little bit of hope that things won't always be this bad. If a kid is having trouble with friends and they're really, really sad, you get to say, yeah, you know what? It's really hard when you feel like you've lost some friendships or friendships have changed. That makes sense that you would feel sad. And I know that you're a really good friend and you're going to be able to find new friends, and that sometimes this happens with friendships. They go through hard times, but you're going to be able to handle this. And then you can say, what do you want to do right now? Do you want to, go for a walk or have a hug, right? So we are witnessing and we are offering them perspective. And sometimes we have to put a boundary if we need to. But for today's episode, I want to focus just on the energy that you're bringing to the conversations when you're using the connection tool. You are naming that feeling. And I like to say, I wonder if you're feeling sad. Like asking it as a question to build a conversation. So if you think about self-energy within a wounded part, the self-energy would ask a question. It would be curious. Tell me more. What's going on? Describe this feeling to me. What would you call it? Now, it's hard if you say, what would you call it? And your kids are little and they don't have words yet. So you might give them a couple of examples. It looks like sadness. Is it sadness? I wonder if you're feeling sad. So we're teaching that emotional literacy while modeling it. Some kids, they won't trust this energy, especially if in the past you've been a little bit codependent and you've been like rescuing and trying to like bypass their feeling. So they're like really sad and you're immediately go to like, well, don't be sad because tomorrow we're going to be able to go to the park, right? If you're too quick for solution, or in the past you've said, well, the reason why we can't go to the park is because look, it's raining. That's why. Like if you're not validating their feeling and you're going to solution, you're going to logic, you're going to promises, you're going to bribes, you're going to future, your children will notice that you are bypassing their negative emotion, and they might get the message that their emotion isn't okay, that their emotion isn't valid. So you're going to start validating your child's emotion, which is amazing, but your child might not trust it yet. So allow for that befriending, is what they call it in internal family systems. Allow time for your children to learn that they can trust that you're not going to go into your fix it, change it, stop it, solve it energy, that you're not going to go into your negative, you're not going to fall apart if they fall apart, like that you're showing them, listen, you can trust me. You're safe here. I've got you. It's okay to fall apart here. I'm good. I'm ready. I can handle it. So your role is to like be that witness. When I think about a compassionate witness, I really think about how a witness is not a participant. So if I am witnessing my child's pain, I'm not participating in that pain. I can't give perspective and clarity and calm if I'm stuck in their big feeling cycle, or if I'm trying to stop their big feeling cycle. If I'm coming from my energy and my need, like my emotional dysregulation, and I come to that moment with my kid, then I'm not going to be in that self-led energy. Self-led energy is calm. It has clarity, it's confidence, it's curiosity, it's compassion, right? I'm not a participant. I'm not having an emotional experience. I'm witnessing the emotional experience. I've seen this a lot. A lot of parents fall apart when their kids fall apart. That's terrifying for a child. So if you've been doing that, it's fine. Forgive yourself, but try to be stronger. Sometimes your job is to just be a hope merchant. That's what it's called in internal family systems. Just offering the idea to your child that things won't always be this hard and that they can handle this feeling. So giving them the possibility that they're going to grow up and it's going to be okay someday. You're going to get through this. You're strong. I can trust that you're going to be okay, kid. I believe in you. I always say the 3 things that kids want to hear from their parents: I love you, I'm proud of you, and you're going to be okay. So in this energy, you're holding the you're going to be okay energy. And it requires true calm, right? Compassion, that fourth step of emotional literacy, the ability to witness somebody else's pain, to help them process their pain, means that I have to be able to process my own pain and not be overwhelmed by their pain. And that is challenging for parents for sure, especially because we love them so, so much, right? It can be very difficult to listen without trying to fix it. The way that I do that for myself when I'm with my kids and I know that they're struggling or I'm worried about them is I cultivate trust. I actively work on my belief around my children. I actively think positive thoughts about their future because I can very easily go to the negative in the future. I do like a lot of future tripping and it's like worst case scenarioing. And that's not helpful for my children. I need them to believe that they're going to be okay and that they're going to grow up and they're going to figure it out and they're going to solve these problems. And it's not always going to be this bad for them, especially in adolescence. And so they have to borrow my belief because they're young. They don't have belief yet. They don't have perspective. They're looking at me wondering, am I going to be okay? And if I'm looking at them thinking, holy shit, I don't think you're going to be okay, that's a really difficult place for kids because then they can really get scared. And that's when they get that emotional pain. That's where they get those burdens. Learning to witness your pain. I was thinking about the whole the self energy is the sun, and parts of us and pain, those are like clouds and weather, and the sun is always there. And sometimes we can see the sun like during the day, and sometimes it's nighttime and we can't see the sun, but we know it will come again, right? The sun always rises because the world always turns. So as a parent, you are the sun. You are the light in their life that offers that peace and that perspective. And you are witnessing their pain as if it's weather, as if it's a darkness, like a nighttime thing. And you know it's temporary, right? You're observing their storm, but you're the sunshine above the clouds. I really hope that you can tap into this energy that I'm offering for you. When your kids are in their big feelings, when they're struggling, when their behavior's out of bounds, when you're not sure what to do, get curious. Curiosity is the beginning of that process towards compassion. I call it the journey of calm. And it's really about, I start out in my feelings, my judgment, my fear, my worry, my criticism. I start out in my emotional experience and I move to a place of neutrality towards curiosity. If I'm starting to be curious about my kids' feelings and their experience, I know I'm tapping into self-energy. So curiosity is a clue that you are getting closer to being in that true, compassionate, connected space with your kids. So if you're trying to figure out, am I calm? You can just ask yourself, am I calm? Am I curious? Am I compassionate right now? If you're not, no problem. Take a pause break. Take a beat. Connect with yourself. Soothe yourself. Reset. Let yourself know, hey, it's okay. We're going to be okay. And then you can bring that energy to your children. So asking yourself, am I able to witness this pain right now without needing to fix it? You can literally just ask yourself that question while your kids are complaining about something, griping about something, going through something hard, having a, bedtime meltdown or whatever it is, thinking, can I witness this? Those are the questions you want to be asking yourself is, can I be curious right now? Am I curious? Can I be curious? Now, I think about some of the obstacles, right, that come up is like we don't know how to do this for ourselves, or we're overwhelmed, or our life is too stressful, and it's very hard to get to that place of calm. So the practices are pausing when you notice you're reactive. Literally taking 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 40 seconds. It doesn't require that much time. I read somewhere that it takes 45 seconds to reset the nervous system and get into the parasympathetic nervous system. Like it doesn't take that long, which is fascinating to me. That's especially if we use our body, right? So the pause break is really important. I have a lot of episodes on that, especially in the beginning of the podcast, how to take a pause break. And what to do when you're pausing, how to reset your body, reset your mind, reset your heart, connect with yourself. That's finding that self energy. And then another strategy is just keep working on calm. Just keep working on building a better relationship with yourself. When you notice you're critical and your inner voice is negative, that means there's a part of you that's trying to protect you from pain. Ask that voice if it would be willing to be quiet and get curious about what it's worried about. What's it protecting you from? Can you soothe that? Can you let that part of you know it's safe? It's okay. The world's going to be all right. Be the parent to yourself that you wish you had. Be the parent to your children that you wish you had. So as you parent yourself, in those hard moments, you'll tap into better tools to parent your kids. The other little tip I have on this is to look for behavior patterns in your kids. Notice their behavior strategies, like notice times a day that they act out, especially like in the mornings or right before school, you drop them off at school or camp, right after school, right before dinner, right at meal times, right before bed. Like noticing these patterns, and you might be able to then narrate the circumstance to your children, narrate how they act at certain times of day, name some of the feelings they might have at that time of day, and then gives them some tools to deal with those feelings in different strategies. So looking for patterns can be really helpful. And when you are looking for patterns from curiosity, it will help you be more neutral when you see them. So instead of being like, oh my God, every night right before bed, my kids completely freak out and it's like such a shitstorm. It's like, okay, let's find out what time of day is that? What do you think is going on for your kids? Why do you think they're acting that way? Getting curious, doing that connection tool in advance. So patterns are really helpful because we can do our thinking when we're not in our reactive state. And then when the thing happens, we're able to go to our kids and be like, hey, I've noticed that every time I say it's time to eat, the two of you start fighting. Like, I wonder if you feel sad that I'm stopping playtime in order for you to come eat. Yeah, that makes sense. So what do you think you could do instead? We do have to eat. How can we make it a little more pleasant? What can we do instead? So just being very curious, being the leader and connecting with your kids instead of from that reactive state, from that calm, connected, compassionate space. Okay. Whew. Yeah. Listen, curiosity is your clue. When you get to curiosity about your kids, you know you are in that energy and you're on your way to compassion. So just kind of work at building your natural curiosity. Why do my kids act that way? When do they act out? What could be going on? Getting curious and then connecting the dots for them. That's all you're doing with this self-led energy. All right. Woo! If you want support, I would love for you to join me in the Calm Mama Club because this is the work that we do in there. We look for patterns in the behavior. Moms come, they're like, hey, this is what's happening. What do you think is going on? And I'll ask a couple clarifying questions. And then the mom will be like, oh yeah, okay, this is what I think's happening. And then we get really curious. The mom goes back, has a connection conversation. Honestly, behavior improves so much when we connect the dots for our kids. The dots being the feeling inside to the behavior and then giving them new understanding about those feelings and new strategies to deal with those feelings. It's miraculous. Sometimes we have to set better boundaries so that they pivot their behavior. Sometimes we have to do consequences so that they understand the experience of that negative behavior. It's a beautiful club. It's $30 a month. It's like basically, a subscription to, Disney Plus or whatever, but you get to talk with me and the group every week on Tuesdays. And there's a whole online course and a handbook and tons of resources. I highly recommend you joining, hanging out with us in the club. You can sign up on my website under programs and you'll see that. Okay. I really have loved talking to you about internal family systems and talking to you about your self energy. And I hope you tap into it more and more so that your children can have access to their whole self as well. All right, Mama, I will talk to you next week. Hey Mama, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I want to encourage you to do two things. The first is go to my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and get a copy of the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. You'll get a step-by-step breakdown of the most important tool I teach, which is the pause break. And you'll also get 40 ideas to reset your body and balance your nervous system so you don't have to yell at your kids. You can get a copy of that, again, at my website, calmmamacoaching.com/stop yelling. The other thing I'd love for you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other moms can discover empowering and helpful, practical parenting strategies just like you did today. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to be in your ear every week and to support you on your parenting journey.